The staples in my abdomen pulled with every breath, each movement a reminder that my body had been sliced open just 48 hours ago. I clutched my newborn daughter, Lily, to my chest as I tried to sit up in bed, the pain medication barely taking the edge off. The C-section had been emergency. Lily had been breech, her heart rate dropping with each contraction. But she was here now, perfect and tiny, worth every ounce of agony. Knock, knock. My brother Derek burst through my bedroom door without waiting for an answer, his gaming headset around his neck like a trophy. At 25, he still lived at home, still had Mom doing his laundry, still believed his Twitch channel with 47 subscribers was about to blow up any day now. "Derek, please," I whispered, trying not to wake Lily. She just fell asleep. He ignored me, scanning my room with calculating eyes. "Yeah, this'll work. The lighting from that window is perfect for my setup, and there's already Ethernet wired in here. What are you talking about?" Dad appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, that look on his face I'd seen 1,000 times, the one that meant I was about to be disappointed again. "Natalie, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. Well, the parts of it that could still feel anything through the surgical trauma. "Dad, I just had major surgery. Can this wait?" "Derek's streaming career is taking off," he announced, like Derek hadn't been saying that for 3 years while contributing nothing to household expenses. "He needs a proper setup. A real studio." But for him, I managed, shifting Lily as she stirred. "What does that have to do with?" "He needs your room." The words hung in the air like a bad smell. I must have misheard. The pain meds must be making me hallucinate. "I'm sorry, what?" Mom squeezed past Dad, already pulling my suitcase from the closet. "You're fine, Natalie. Women have been having babies for thousands of years. Stop milking it." "Milking it?" My voice cracked. They cut through 7 layers of tissue. I can't even stand up straight. "Drama queen, just like always," Mom muttered, throwing my clothes into the suitcase without folding them. "Your sister Madison had 3 C-sections and was hosting dinner parties within a week." Madison. Of course. My older sister who lived in a house her husband's parents bought them, who had a full-time nanny, who my parents visited every Sunday but who never once came to see me during my pregnancy. "I can't move," I said desperately. "The doctor said no lifting, no stairs, no driving for 6 weeks. Where am I supposed to go?" Derek was already measuring the walls with his phone app. "I'm thinking the PC setup here, green screen there. Oh, and I'll need to paint over this gross yellow color." That's the nursery wall," I whispered. I painted it myself at 7 months pregnant, soft buttercream yellow with little white cloud stencils. My then boyfriend Kyle had left me 2 weeks later, saying he wasn't ready for all this pressure. But I finished that room alone, determined my daughter would come home to something beautiful. "Kyle's apartment," Dad said firmly. "You can stay with him." "Kyle left me, Dad, remember. When I was 7 months pregnant, I told you this." He waved dismissively. "Then a friend, or one of those mother's shelters. The point is, Derek needs this room by tonight. He has a sponsored stream tomorrow." Sponsored, Derek added proudly. "Energy drink company. $12 whole if I hit my view target." $12. They were throwing me out for $12. Mom zipped the suitcase with finality. "There's formula in the kitchen. That should last you a few days until you figure things out." "I'm breastfeeding," I said numbly. "Well, that's your choice to make things harder on yourself." She was already stripping the bed, my blood from the night my water broke still faintly visible on the mattress, despite my attempts to clean it. "Derek, honey, we'll get you a new mattress. This one's ruined anyway." I tried to stand, gasping as the incision site screamed in protest. "Please, just a few more days. Until I can walk properly." "God, you're so selfish," Derek snapped. "Do you know how hard I've worked for this? How many hours I've put in? And you want to sabotage my big break because of a little surgery." "A little surgery." I laughed, but it came out hysterical. "They removed an entire human from my body." "Yeah, one you chose to have," Mom said coldly. "Nobody forced you to keep it after Kyle left. You made your bed." The cruelty of it stole my breath. I'd always known I was the unfavorite, the middle child who got straight A's but never got the praise Madison's C's earned, who worked full-time through college while Derek got a free ride to drop out twice. But this was beyond anything I'd imagined. Dad checked his watch. It's 2 p.m. We need the room cleared by 6. Derek's equipment arrives at 7. They left me sitting there, incision throbbing, baby beginning to cry, surrounded by my hastily packed life. 2 days. 2 days postpartum, and I was homeless. I called everyone I could think of. College friends were sympathetic but had roommates, no space. My best friend Emma was traveling for work. Each "I'm so sorry" but felt like another staple ripping loose. Finally, desperately, I called my manager at the accounting firm where I'd worked until my maternity leave started. Margaret answered on the second ring. "Natalie, how's our little tax deduction doing?" I broke down completely, sobbing out the whole story. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Pack whatever you can. I'm sending my son with his pickup truck. You're staying in my guest house." "Margaret, I can't." "You can and you will. And Monday morning we're calling my lawyer." They had no idea what was coming next. Margaret's guest house was small but clean, with a real bed and a kitchenette, and most importantly, no Derek measuring the walls. Her son, Thomas, had been horrified when he'd arrived to find me trying to carry bags while holding Lily, my parents watching from the doorway like supervisors. "Is she okay to be moving like this?" he'd asked them. "She's fine," Mom had said. Always been dramatic. Thomas had looked at me, really looked at the way I was hunched over, the careful shuffle of my walk, the deft grip on the banister. "Ma'am, with all due respect, she's clearly not fine." "Don't ma'am me, young man. I know my own daughter." He'd looked at my things in silence, but I'd seen the disgust on his face. As we'd pulled away, Derek was already hauling in boxes labeled fragile gaming equipment. The first week at Margaret's was a blur of pain and healing and learning Lily's rhythms. Margaret herself checked on me daily, bringing groceries and keeping me company. It was more maternal care than I'd received in years. "I've been thinking," she said one afternoon, watching me wince as I nursed Lily. "Your parents own that house free and clear, right?" "Yeah, Grandpa left it to them." "And Derek's never paid rent?" "Never contributed." I shook my head. "They say his streaming is his job, even though he's never made more than $50 a month." Margaret smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. "Interesting. And you paid rent when you lived there?" $500 a month, even during college. The unfairness of it hit me anew. They said it would teach me responsibility. "Oh, it taught you something, all right." She pulled out her phone. "I'm texting my lawyer. We're going to teach him something too." The next months were a whirlwind. Margaret's lawyer, a shark named Patricia, had been fascinated by my case. Turns out, in our state, you can't just evict someone who's been paying rent without proper notice, especially not someone recovering from major surgery with a newborn. What my parents had done wasn't just cruel, it was illegal. But that was just the beginning. See, I'd been meticulous about records. Every rent payment receipted. Every medical expense during pregnancy that they'd promised to help with then reneged on, documented. Every time they'd taken money from my college fund to support Derek's career, screenshot. "This is beautiful," Patricia had murmured, flipping through my files. "You know what else is beautiful? The fact that they used your rent money specifically for Derek's expenses. That's taxable income they never reported." While Patricia built her case, I focused on rebuilding. Margaret offered me flexible work from home hours once my recovery allowed. I found a small apartment, nothing fancy but mine. Lily thrived, hitting every milestone with determination that reminded me we were survivors, both of us. I didn't hear from my family for 3 months. Then Derek texted, "Where are you? Need to forward our mail." I gave him Margaret's address. The mail that arrived was illuminating: medical bills, insurance statements, all proof they'd been claiming me as a dependent on taxes while simultaneously charging me rent. Patricia actually giggled when she saw it. The lawsuit was filed quietly: wrongful eviction, emotional distress, tax fraud, elder abuse, because it turns out Grandpa's will had stipulated the house was for all family members equally, and they'd been systematically forcing out one while subsidizing another. But I wasn't done. See, Derek's streaming career had an interesting sponsor list. Energy drinks, yes, but also some shadier companies that I recognized from my accounting work. Companies that were fronts that the IRS was very interested in. One anonymous tip later. The first domino fell when the IRS showed up at my parents' door. The second when the wrongful eviction suit was served. The third when adult protective services got involved. Turned out my grandmother on mom's side had been living in the basement, and the conditions were not good. I hadn't even known she was there. They told me she was in a home. Derek's streaming equipment was seized as evidence of unreported income. His sponsor fled when the investigation started. His career evaporated overnight. The house of cards collapsed spectacularly. They tried to contact me, of course. First angry voicemails, then desperate texts. Mom showed up at Margaret's once, demanding to see her grandchild. "You threw us up 2 days after her birth," I said through the door. "You don't get to claim her now." "We're family," she wailed. "Family doesn't throw postpartum women onto the street." The legal proceedings took a year. By Lily's first birthday, I had won everything. The house had to be sold to pay back taxes and my settlement. My parents' retirement savings, already thin from funding Derek's lifestyle, evaporated into legal fees. Derek himself was living in a studio apartment, working at Best Buy, his gaming dreams as dead as my parents' favoritism. They'd lost everything. But I gained more than money. I had Lily, who was walking now, saying "Mama" and clapping at everything. I had Margaret, who'd become the mother I'd never had. I had my little apartment with its sunny windows and no one measuring the walls. I had my dignity, my peace, my freedom from being the family scapegoat. Madison finally reached out last week. "You destroyed our family," she accused. "No," I corrected. I revealed what it always was: rotten. Derek's depressed. Mom cries all day. Dad had to sell his golf clubs. And I couldn't stand up straight for weeks while they painted over my daughter's nursery. She hung up. Good riddance. Sometimes I drive past the old house, now owned by a young family who actually seems to love each other. I see kids playing in the yard where I was never allowed to make noise because Derek was recording. I see birthday decorations where mine were never celebrated because they felt too close to Derek's gaming tournaments. Lily waves at the children from her car seat, and I wave too. At the ghosts of what could have been. At the girl who painted yellow clouds while her baby kicked inside her. At the woman who was told she was dramatic for bleeding, selfish for healing, wrong for existing. They thought I was milking a C-section. Turns out, I was just gathering strength. They had no idea what was coming next, but now they know. When you throw away family like trash, don't be surprised when they return as a storm. My incision scar has faded to a thin silver line now. A reminder not of pain, but of survival. Of the day I was cut open twice. Once by a surgeon to bring life. Once by family to destroy it. Only one of those wounds was meant to heal. The other, that was meant to make me stronger. And it did.